Today, we are taking a deep and honest look at why Denmark is suddenly being talked about as if it has declared a war on immigration, why the conversation around it has intensified, and why Europe is watching closely. There has been a lot of loud discussion, many interpretations, and plenty of dramatic headlines, but behind all of it sits a complex story about politics, demographics, social trust, and the changing identity of a small but influential European nation. This video will walk you through all of it, step by step in simple language. Denmark is a country often associated with calm politics, social stability, and a famously strong welfare system. But over the last 2 decades, immigration has become one of the most debated issues in the Danish public sphere. Many people outside Denmark have recently been surprised by the country's firm policies. To them, it feels sudden, but inside Denmark, this shift has been building for years. What seems sudden to foreigners is the result of a long internal debate that has shaped the policies people are discussing today. One of the key things to understand is that Denmark is a relatively small nation. It has just under 6 million people. When a country is small, any rapid demographic change feels more dramatic. Even moderate increases in migration can feel large compared to the size of the native population. This does not automatically mean the country opposes immigration, but it does mean discussions about integration, cultural adaptation, and social cohesion become central topics faster than they do in bigger countries. Another point is Denmark's welfare system. It is one of the most generous in the world, offering free healthcare, free education, unemployment support, and many social protections. But generosity comes with expectations. Danish society is built on the idea of mutual contribution. People pay high taxes, and in return, they receive high-quality public services. When new arrivals come into the system, many Danish citizens want to ensure that everyone participates, works, and contributes to the collective model. When some groups struggle with employment or integration, it raises concerns about whether the system can remain sustainable. Over time, those concerns turned into national political debates. Political parties across the spectrum, left, right, and center, started introducing policies focusing on integration, border control, and social expectations. This did not happen overnight. It developed gradually as public opinion changed. And one of the most interesting features of Denmark is that even center-left parties became supportive of stricter immigration policies. Their argument was that preserving the welfare system required maintaining social unity. Whether one agrees with that or not, it became a major force shaping policy. So when people say Denmark is suddenly declaring war on immigration, they are not describing a literal war. They are describing the feeling that Denmark has become far stricter than many other European countries. But again, to Danish citizens, these policies are seen as practical, not emotional. Denmark frames them as protective measures for the social model it values. Internationally, however, those same policies can look tough, even harsh. There is also a cultural dimension. Denmark is proud of its national identity, traditions, and social norms. Danish society is built around trust, informality, transparency, and equality. When newcomers arrive with different customs or languages, it naturally creates challenges. This is true in every country, but Danes tend to discuss it openly. Public debates about national values are normal. Some people view that openness as refreshing honesty. Others view it as exclusionary. But regardless of opinion, it has influenced political choices. In recent years, several policy decisions drew global attention. Some involved tightening residency rules. Others involved increasing integration requirements. There were debates about repatriation programs and asylum processing rules. None of these policies are equivalent to banning immigration entirely, but together they signal that Denmark wants a highly controlled and selective system. This is where the phrase declaring war on immigration gets used in media commentary, often for dramatic effect. Europe is paying close attention because Denmark is something of a testing ground. Many European countries face similar challenges: aging populations, demands for labor, debates about cultural change, and concerns about social cohesion. But most countries are divided on how to respond. Denmark, being small and politically stable, can implement policies more rapidly. Other nations watch to see whether those policies succeed or face backlash. So Denmark in a way becomes a preview of Europe's future policy experiments. There is also the international factor. Migration into Europe has fluctuated due to global conflicts, economic disparities, and humanitarian crises. Denmark's response to these pressures sends a message to neighboring countries. When Denmark tightens its laws, it puts pressure on its Nordic neighbors who may not want to become alternative destinations. The European Union also reacts strongly because Denmark's approach sometimes clashes with EU norms on free movement and asylum standards. This creates a wider debate about whether Europe should move toward Denmark's model or away from it. Another driving factor behind the conversation is political realignment. Across Europe, traditional left-right divides are fading. Cultural issues like immigration increasingly define political identity. Denmark reflects this trend. Politicians have realized that voters care deeply about social stability and national unity. As a result, even parties that once supported more open policies began adjusting their positions. This contributes to the impression that the entire country shifted directions suddenly. At the same time, Denmark still accepts immigrants. It still welcomes skilled workers. It still brings in international students. It still hosts refugees under international agreements, but it does so under more regulated conditions. This nuance is often lost in dramatic headlines. It is easier for newspapers to say Denmark turns against immigration than to explain a long, slow evolution of public opinion. That simplification creates confusion outside Denmark, where people may only hear the boldest version of the story. But why did public mood shift in the first place? Several reasons emerge. Some Danish cities experienced difficulties with integration, especially for groups who arrived in large numbers during earlier refugee waves. Economic factors played a role too. When some immigrant communities faced higher unemployment or lower educational outcomes, it sparked debates about long-term social impact. These debates were not always comfortable, but they shaped policy. Security concerns also influenced opinions. Even though Denmark is generally safe, incidents of crime involving newcomers often receive heavy media coverage. Whether statistically significant or not, they affect perception. Denmark's political leadership often responds to perception as much as to data, because governing involves managing public confidence. This is another reason policies tend to tighten rather than loosen. Cultural and religious discussions have also been central. Denmark is a largely secular, socially liberal society. Issues like gender equality, free speech, and personal freedoms are deeply valued. When newcomers arrive from more conservative backgrounds, cultural friction sometimes occurs. Danish society tends to resist changes that challenge its norms. This has created ongoing debates about how much a society should adapt to immigrants and how much immigrants should adapt to the society they join. International observers sometimes misunderstand Denmark's tone. Danish political culture is very direct. Politicians say things plainly. They do not sugarcoat controversial topics. In many countries, such language would be considered offensive or politically dangerous. But in Denmark, open disagreement is seen as normal democratic debate. Outsiders may hear harsh rhetoric, but Danes hear practical policymaking. This gap in cultural communication fuels misunderstandings. Another factor shaping Denmark's strict approach is its belief in preventive action. Danish policymakers often say they want to avoid the problems faced by larger European cities where rapid immigration created parallel communities and social tensions. Whether those comparisons are accurate or not, they influence policy. Denmark prefers to act early rather than wait for challenges to grow. Critics say this approach risks being too strict. Supporters say it preserves long-term stability. European governments are watching closely because Denmark's results will inform their own decisions. If Denmark maintains high social trust, low crime, and strong public services while limiting immigration, some countries may follow its example. If it struggles with workforce shortages or diplomatic challenges, others may argue for more open systems. In this sense, Denmark's choices are shaping the next chapter of European policy discussions. It is also important to note that Denmark is not rejecting immigrants as people. It is restructuring immigration as a system. The Danish model emphasizes selectivity, integration, and contribution. It aims to bring in people who have job skills, language potential, and adaptability to Danish norms. Critics argue that this risks creating a hierarchy of worthiness. Supporters argue that it ensures fairness and sustainability. Both perspectives exist and both deserve understanding. Denmark's demographic challenges further drive the conversation. Like many European countries, it has an aging population. It needs workers. Immigration could help solve this problem, but only if newcomers integrate successfully. Policymakers worry that large-scale, unregulated migration may create future social costs. Meanwhile, businesses argue that stricter policies limit access to talent. This tension between economic and social priorities shapes ongoing debates. Another layer of complexity is foreign policy. Denmark participates in international humanitarian efforts. It supports refugees abroad and invests in development projects. But at home, it insists on selective immigration. Some countries view this as contradictory. Denmark argues it is consistent. Help people in crisis where they are and keep domestic systems stable. This approach has sparked both praise and criticism on the global stage. In recent years, Denmark has also proposed policies like relocation of asylum processing centers outside Europe. These proposals are controversial and legally complex. Supporters say they reduce human trafficking and prioritize legitimate refugees. Critics say they undermine humanitarian principles. Regardless of viewpoint, these proposals make Denmark appear as a country willing to challenge traditional norms. That boldness adds to the impression that Denmark is taking a uniquely hard stance. The global media often amplifies the most extreme interpretations of Denmark's policies. A headline suggesting the country is turning against immigration gains more attention than a nuanced explanation of complex legislation. As a result, international audiences sometimes believe Denmark made one dramatic decision, when in reality it has been shaping policy gradually for many years. This disconnect between perception and reality is a major reason your social media feed might suddenly be full of videos claiming Denmark has gone to war with immigration. Yet despite the strict tone of its policies, Denmark remains one of the most stable, safe, and socially trusting countries in the world. Immigrants who integrate successfully often say they appreciate Denmark's fairness, organization, and quality of life. But the path to belonging can be demanding. The emphasis on language fluency, employment, and cultural adaptation can feel intense. For some, it is motivating. For others, it feels exclusionary. These mixed experiences are part of the broader picture. As we examine Denmark's approach, it is important to remember that immigration is not a simple issue anywhere. Every country must balance economic needs, social values, humanitarian responsibilities, and political pressures. Denmark's choices reflect its own priorities and challenges. What works for Denmark may not work elsewhere, and what seems harsh from afar may look pragmatic from within the country. Understanding context is essential before forming an opinion. The debate over Denmark's immigration policies also raises questions about the future of multiculturalism in Europe. Some believe Europe should embrace diversity and encourage cultural coexistence. Others argue that too much diversity too quickly can weaken social cohesion. Denmark positions itself somewhere in the middle, willing to accept newcomers, but insisting on high levels of assimilation. Whether this model succeeds or struggles will influence not just Denmark's future, but possibly Europe's broader direction. Many young Danes support the idea of controlled immigration, but also want a more welcoming tone. They believe Denmark can remain both open and careful. Older generations often emphasize tradition and stability. These generational differences shape political discourse, creating a dynamic conversation rather than a fixed conclusion. The country is not united in one viewpoint. It is navigating competing ideas, just like any democracy. Technology and social media also amplify fears and misunderstandings. Viral posts may claim that Denmark banned certain practices or expelled entire groups, even when those claims are exaggerated or false. People outside Denmark may not check local sources, leading to confusion. This is another reason the narrative of declaring war on immigration spreads easily. Sensational information travels faster than accurate information. Ultimately, Denmark's story is not about sudden hostility. It is about a small nation trying to preserve a social model that it believes is unique and vulnerable to rapid change. Whether one agrees with that reasoning or not, understanding it helps explain the country's recent decisions. Denmark is not closing its doors. It is tightening them, checking who enters, and ensuring that those who do enter can become part of its social fabric. The rest of Europe watches because the same questions await them. As we wrap up this deep dive, it is clear that the phrase declaring war on immigration is an exaggeration used to capture attention. The real story is more complex, less dramatic, and far more revealing about modern Europe. Denmark is navigating identity, economics, culture, and politics all at once. It is experimenting with policies that challenge traditional approaches. It is responding to public concerns while trying to remain humane and responsible. Whether one agrees with the direction or not, Denmark's choices force important questions that every country will face eventually. Thank you for watching. If you found this explanation helpful, make sure to like the video, share it, and subscribe for more content that breaks down global issues in clear, thoughtful ways. I appreciate your time, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.